Africa. Given Jung's phylogenetic perspective, a journey to Africa held to be the source of mankind had particular significance. Moreover, the desert was one of the key imaginal locations in the Black Books. For this trip, Jung traveled with H.G. Baines and George Beckwith. Their group was called the Bugishu Psychological Expedition. Later, they were joined by an English woman, Ruth Bailey. The trip led Jung to understand that within the soul, from the primordial beginning, there had been a longing for light and an irresistible urge to rise out of its primordial darkness. The longing for light is the longing for consciousness. His journey itself became an imago of the supposed origins of consciousness. He said of his voyage up the Nile, "The myth of Horus is the story of the newly risen divine light. It would have been told after the deliverance out of the primordial darkness of prehistoric times to culture, that is to say, through the revelation of consciousness." Thus, the journey from the interior of Africa to Egypt became for me like a drama of the birth of light, which was intimately connected with me, with my psychology. In Jung's fantasies in 1922, Egyptian mythology had played a significant part in formulating the role and the tasks that he, his wife, and Tony Wolff had to fulfill. He gave further indication of the connection between his travels and his own psychology in a passage omitted from the published version of Memories. My experiences during the years of 1913 to 1917 had burdened me with a tangle of problems whose nature demanded that I should study the psychic life of non-Europeans. For I suspected that the questions put to me were just so many compensations for my European prejudices. What I had seen in North Africa and what Ochwe Baino Mountain Lake told me were the first clues to an adequate explanation of my experiences. Thus, Jung's travels were directly connected to the material in the Black Books and Livre Nobis, and formed part of an attempt to understand these by placing them with a wider historical and geographical context. His statements here indicates that what he personally went through could also be conceived as a de-europeanisation. Extrapolating from this, the import for Westerners of the exploration of his collective unconscious could also be conceived of from this perspective. The task was one of reaching a balanced synthesis of the Western and the primitive.